Right, so welcome everybody. Beautiful to see you guys as always. This is working group number 65 of the Stacks Governance Working Group. It's always a pleasure to be here with y'all. But yeah, we'll get right into it. We'll let folks go into stand-ups and get into some good discussion hopefully today that we left off on last time we were together. And I think it makes for some good discussion, some of the issues brought in. But yeah, let's get started. I can start the stand-up if it's okay. The last couple of weeks have been productive from my view with the advocates and the GovLab and getting some good sessions done together and recorded as it relates to leveraging the systems design that we've been working on that was being considered in the tooling, built into the tooling, but not necessarily applied. So folks can get used to the tooling without all of the robust system design on top of it. But in the last weeks, we tried our best to schedule meetings with folks that could make it, got some recordings down and started to work on some documentation that can be a static place for folks to digest how exactly to pick up what are very much these modular tools that Haas made sure to get done for us in a timely way. Yeah, we can pick up these tools as folks need them in their respective clans, the respective scheduling, time zones, even maybe respective aesthetic that they need in the experience of the tooling. So this is something that we're excited for moving forward in the next couple of weeks, having some static documentation for folks, encourage them to use the tooling with the system design in mind. And we can get a little bit more into that later. But yeah, that's about it on my side. We have some recent meetings with, on my side for the advocates, but on the Indigenous mode side of things for the GovLab, had some recent meetings with Magenta, who we've met through Kernel and is very aligned in some of the Indigenous modes and digital fabrication efforts we have, and has a firm understanding of how Web3 tooling has an impact on local and regional areas. So we started to catch up on what's possible with the tooling, what's going on in these respective places in the GovLab, and started to bring her on board. So we're excited to see how that comes into the picture in the coming weeks as well, to share with you guys here as it relates to governance and the tooling and such. So, but yeah, I'll shut up to keep my stand up shorter and pass it to y'all. See what you guys have been up to.
Don't everybody jump at once, right? Yeah, so from my side of things, I am currently we're going through the protocol upgrade for CityCoins. Our vote passed, and it's been interesting to see this process play out, because this was just an initial on-chain vote to ratify some off-chain information, moving on to new contract structures, all sorts of fun stuff there. But what you guys are talking about actually is a huge overlap with some of the initiatives that are also being talked about in CityCoins, which would be how to structure not only governance, but almost like DAOs in a way that you would have a parent DAO that interacts with the protocol, and sub DAOs that could work out different, almost like committees or work streams or similar type things too. So I am definitely interested to hear more about the tooling and what's possible, and looking into like ways, how can we integrate, what you guys have learned throughout this whole process in with the things that we're doing as well. So overall, that's what I think I'll be focusing on these next 2 weeks.
And it makes the session all the more exciting too, to bring you into what's possible with the tooling. And yeah, we're excited to stay plugged into how this overlaps with CityCoins. Of course, this is very, very exciting to say the least. Thank you kindly, Jason. Excited to know that's what you'll be focused on too. So yeah, let's go on with the stand-ups. Thank you kindly, Jason. No, I want to see. Hero, you feel free to say something if you'd like. Merrick, I've seen you guys throughout the week. I know you guys have some things to share that you want to. You don't have to. But yeah.
I always get smacked with a little bit of like time blindness. It's like, oh shit, what have I actually done in the last 2 week block? But yeah, I think nothing too big. I've been playing with this, mind test, modpol, stuff for getting some embodied governance, one day, set some stage and playing and seeing what's possible. Has set up a test instance for us to play with, and I've just been kind of just honestly just playing. I've just been playing with the different what's possible with some of these like policies and some of the modules that exist, and then also poking around and building a mod for my test to do some authentication with stacks. I just popped out of a hero dev call on what might be possible with like arbitrary transaction signing, or even just how can we do like stacks authentication for something that's not a web app. So nothing concrete, but that's kind of what I've been playing with, in my mind a little bit with just research. And yeah, I'll stop there. That's kind of something I've been thinking about.
Thank you, man. It's exciting. It's exciting. I know Des has been excited to play with Mindtest too in the last couple of days, thanks to Haas getting up that server for us. And no, yeah, it sounds exciting. Some of the ways you're thinking about connecting it to the technology stack, to say the least. And I know there's a myriad of other ways you're thinking about it too. So thank you kindly for the update, man. Sure. But yeah, Hero, Haas, you have anything for us if you'd like?
Nope.
Okay. Cool.
Okay, so I'll try. In Stacks Advocate, been trying to sort of work out like the onboarding system or getting some feedback. I think Merrick suggested something quite good, like maybe having like a buddy channel maybe in there somewhere. Maybe, they can talk about it, talk about things. But I think just like in general, there's quite a few new people come on. And I think I've noticed like maybe it takes quite a few resources to pair them up. I think net should be worth it in the medium term, long term. I think is great, but just figuring out about resources, see who actually has the capacity to onboard some of these new people, so they are not just like coming and then it's all left to themselves. So that, and I think just kicking off the documentation with you, Harold, and the rest of the team regards to it's just something I've long really want to help the Stacks Advocate in terms of like, because I think I'm quite a normie, so to speak, and I can speak to my fellow normie. So I kind of trying to kick off maybe it's more educational content in the long run. How can we easily demonstrate to the rest of the Stacks community this amazing ethos that we have in Stacks Advocate and in the foundation. Everybody has the right mindset, and Stacks Advocate has this sort of, I call it cultural layer, or maybe social layer, whatever you want to call it. I think that's quite unique, and like to help you guys spread the word out more. But yeah, I think just trying to get that off the ground, and other non-Stacks Advocate stuff. Working group. I added myself to with Haas help. Thank you very much, Haas, to the consideration committee thing. Consideration advisory board.
It was the diversity board for consideration advisory boards, right?
Yes.
Congrats.
Yeah, I finally figured out how to do it on GitHub because I was like, what have I done this repository? Because Drew told me to do a pull request. I was like, what? What's all this stuff? Anyways, thanks for Ha's help today. Managed to get that done, and Drew that has approved it, so it's great. But yeah, I wasn't quite sure between diversity or there's ethics, I think. But yeah, I'm just like very excited to learn about those and just to practice what's going on. Yeah, and I think I saw a post from Trevor, like he said how transparent and sort of the governance stuff is, and anybody can join. And I think it's quite true. Like I am someone purely just from the community. I just like jump in. Anybody can be me, really. Yeah, so quite excited to see that. And I'm trying to, maybe there's something to do with Jason, that I am trying to organize with Sleepy and Cargo, because we do a lot of like wallet stuff, particularly me and Cargo, and we want to set up a website or set up some sort of user-oriented site that user can actually go on and figure out. And because I think some of the documentation we have are very like, these are all the information, but users may not really able to get that immediate help when they really want to just figure out how to unblock their wallet, like right there then. So I'm trying to figure out a way to deliver that in a simple format with the other guys, and just get out there like immediately, because I think we have this immediate needs of users wanting to just sort out their wallet. So I'm trying to work on that, and once we have like a little bit of like prototype or whatever, we'll show you guys and keep everybody in touch. I'm already in touch with the Hero guys, but I know Foundation might be interested as well. So yeah, I don't know what you think about that, Jason.
I think that's great. It's something that when a user gets into the situation of having incorrect nonces or a few transactions that like overspend their balance or something else, it's not immediately clear. And a lot of the support that I've seen given across the board is it's hard to know exactly what the issue is until you look at the transactions, and you're basically manually doing something that can be automated. So if that's something you guys are putting together, I think it's a great idea. Happy to test it out when it comes online.
I don't think it can be as automated as we like it to be, but there might be some very generic steps for tick list to check. And yeah, I think we'll need to write it up, maybe put some JPEGs and see whether it can actually deliver what we think it can deliver.
Sure, yeah. If you guys want to add me to a group chat too, I was remembering there was a retry transaction script that came from someone in the community, and there's some other resources that might be helpful in figuring out the best way to approach that. So if you just want to throw in me in a group DM, we can talk a little more about it outside of the meeting.
Yeah, no problem. But I think, do you think, yeah, like almost like we need people from the foundation at some point, and then people from Hero, and this is a work that can be for everyone, or maybe some other, maybe Citicoin people get transaction stuck, you can refer to this thing, maybe that can be part of Hero or part of Foundation. Yeah.
I'm the Hero. This is interesting stuff, obviously, and the buddy system things at the beginning of your stand-up, I've appreciated it so far. It doesn't seem to be taking up too much of my time. I imagine it's different depending on different people coming in. The first one I had, Kaylee, was pretty direct and easy in terms of scheduling or finding time to help, the type of help. So I'd imagine it can be pretty variant. So, but thank you, Conley. So far, I'm excited for it to evolve. And Ryder, we're just doing stand-ups right now for the last couple of weeks. What will happen in the next 2 weeks? If you're down to share, that's pretty much where we are so far. Yeah, but if you're not available, it's fine. Or if there's nothing to share, it's fine as well. But yeah, feel free to hop in whenever, Ryder, and catch us up on the stand if you'd like to. If you come in, you can hear us. But yeah, we'll move on to some of these foundation updates. It looks like we have Fred coming in as well. Welcome, Fred. Be sure to mute. But welcome once you get connected. Let's see. But yeah, we'll move on to Stacks Foundations unless Fred has anything for us. Not sure. But yeah, I know we usually go over this for important reasons for recordings or new folks in here with any comments or questions around this community board seat. This is, I know, important work from Juliet as well when it comes to evolving out of the structures that have been in place so far. I think she's had some ideas that still wants to make concrete down the line. And we've had some good conversations there here about this before. But this is a fairly important position in terms of the relating important needs from the community to a foundation board, if I'm not mistaken, right? So see if I'm missing anything here in the chat. All right. And yeah, I don't know if anybody else wants to make any important comments here for the recording or for newcomers here. But we can move right along if not. Yeah, and let me see, we get into action items here. I know this is something that you've been working on, Jason, just some themes and aesthetics of some of our work here in the repos, right? So appreciated all of the efforts there so far. I know that you're still have it on mind, or this is still good to be open for any input from us in terms of what that looks like, right?
Yeah, it's a basic change to the theme that runs on the stacksgov.com website, and anybody could technically submit the change. So if somebody is familiar with Doxify or wants to play around, definitely welcome a PR, happy to review it. Otherwise, it's just one of those things we will get to one day, but it's low priority.
Yeah, thank you, Jason, for still having it up here. I know it's worth it, even for other folks to come in, like you said, and get it done if they're interested in even learning some of what that looks like. So I think it's worth it having open. And this is something that you touched on a little bit, Hero. I don't know if you want to give us any other nuances into your experience here. But this is fairly important as well in terms of governance, ensuring folks know that this is an available path to have an impact on things that are happening in the ecosystem, have a chance to review things that are important, that are going to impact either specific categories of governance, ethics, diversity. Jude mentioned in the last session that folks can add on to the type of SIP types if needed, the stacks improvement proposals. So I think this is a useful thing for folks to get refreshed on in these meetings if there's newcomers coming in. And obviously, there was a good path for you, right, Hero? So
yeah. My question sort of to raise would be, do you mean you would like anybody who is in Stacks able to jump into this kind of things? Because I would guess like maybe over 80% of people in Stacks, actual end users, they don't have GitHub, and they don't have. Second, I don't think they know, even if they have an account, I don't think they'll be able to navigate it. initially, it will take them it would take some time to learn how to navigate it properly, unless I'm just too dumb. But I think it'll take like, a good few hours. And do they have that kind of patience to go through those few initial hours of learning to get to the context? Oh, this is actually something I can join anytime. I think that's the only things I would question. Or are we happy to keep it more developer experience, sort of personnel ready kind of people, community? But I just think that sometimes there's different interpretation of community when we say community. And when I typically hang out with the people in the community, are the people in Discord who don't have those knowledge.
I think that's a fair point. I mean, GitHub in itself, the way that it handles version control, like what you're actually doing in there, if that's something that you do not have experience with, then some of the terminology is definitely a learning curve. Yeah, I think that's worth making a note on the issue, and I'll add a little something when we close out here, because it's something to think about, even just to have a list of steps that can be taken, or a way to make it a little bit easier for someone to join the group. Because to answer your initial question, like, yes, anybody in the community who falls within one of those categories, or if there was a category that was not considered that should be added, should definitely have a voice, and this is their way to do it. So if there's friction there, that's good information to know, and something we can probably fix with some documentation.
Yeah, I mean, I tested out with, I deliberately asked Akava the question, do you have GitHub? And actually I asked another guy who are both super active in Stacks community. One is TVQ and the other guy is Akava. Do they have, and they just like going around many different Discord, posting stuff, helping people, that type of community member. I asked both of them, do they have GitHub? They both don't have GitHub. But anyway, I suggest them to get GitHub because I think it's quite useful in participation in this kind of stuff. But yeah, maybe like Jason said, maybe it's good to make a note so we can always come back to that conversation so we don't miss out. Yeah. I mean, like Grant's dashboard almost like sort of bridge that gap a little bit, like using website instead of GitHub, and all the GitHub stuff is on the website. So I can see how that reduces some friction. But yeah, in general, that's what I was thinking about.
Awesome.
Thank you, Hiro. And Jason, I think this lends itself, things that you mentioned to flattening that learning curve a little bit. Potential with documentation, like you said, Jason, and can also help in the way of upskilling to some of your last points, Hiro, right? Just helping that curve a little bit. And yeah, it does seem directly related to accessibility of voice, right? In the way that it's set up so far. So this has been beautiful note to put down, Hiro. Thank you kindly. I'm glad we went over it. Yeah, we have some code of conduct stuff here that we usually go over. We usually would, be grateful for Juliet to be here to help us walk us through where, maybe any updates in the thinking. I know some of the updates in the thinking, just from the advocate side, some discussion with Haas and myself in regards to using the tooling. It would be to use this in use the code of conducts either for the broader Stacks ecosystem or the advocates code of conduct to get some community-led iterations on it, right? That can change it beyond, to some of your points just recently, Hiro, the folks that aren't on GitHub, right? Where a lot of these changes or issues can be posted recommending changes, right? We can broaden that up a little bit by using some of the tooling consensus gathering that we have now. And so, especially for the Advocates Code of Conduct, that seems like something that made more sense than just having the static code of conduct up there to be changed whenever it happens, to be a little bit more proactive in having community voice iterate on the code of conducts, even changing it. That this consensus being a lot more valuable than just a static code of conduct that may not have as much impact, right, as folks all coming together around it in real time or even asynchronously, but in a robust way somewhat somehow. So that's some of the updates on it, I know. But we usually will wait for Juliet to give us any insights on this as well. But yeah, I don't know if there's any other questions or comments around this. We can head on down the line.
I have a question.
Yeah.
What's the barrier to using consensus flow for the Advocates Code of Conduct?
I don't think there's any barrier. I think the only barrier would be documentation, right? Some of that static documentation I mentioned in my stand-up before you came in, that you were part of the meetings where we discussed this with folks this week. I think that'll be a big part of being able to pick it up, the code of conduct, and bring it into those consensus sessions within the context of the tooling. So if there's any barrier, it would be that, having some nice, maybe polished documentation complete with pictures of flow charts and things like this that we've already been floating around but don't necessarily have in one nice polished place. I think that might be the only thin barrier to being able to do some of this, not just with code of conduct, but with anything that makes sense in the system.
Thank you. I'm still confused, but so I totally heard what you said, but I'm gonna try to get unconfused. So what kind of documentation is required in order to use the consensus flow? I think I might be confused on what diagrams might be necessary for, yeah.
Yeah. So the differences in the way the preliminary phase or the active issues channel looks, right? To have that in documentation. The document that we shared during the session yesterday with Jabali and folks there with us, where we were going through some of the language if we needed to, or presenting it for later today. There'll be the document that we go through, try to make the language digestible. I don't know if you remember that document.
Oh, Harold, I'm sorry. Are you talking about diagrams and documentation for the consensus flow?
Yes.
Thank you. I understand now. I thought you meant you wanted flowcharts for the code of conduct, and I was like, I don't understand.
Yeah.
That clears it up for me. Thank you.
Good. Yeah, good. Yeah. I can see how that was confusing. Yeah. But no, thank you for the question. But yeah, if there's anything else on that, we can go back to it. But yeah, I don't think I got anything here in terms of updates that I mentioned to you today. I can get some updates there. Maybe that whatever comes out of the documentation today in terms of changing. I have some language there that is mine, but I wanted to get other folks to make it more digestible in terms of the actual use of the tooling with the system design. And I think there's a little bit of that going on here already, but we can have it a more polished version of it that is actually probably a little bit more usable for folks in these general user journey stuff. So yeah, I'll make sure to get that there, have the language that is helped along by Hero or hopefully other folks that can alter the language a little bit so that folks coming in and may not be familiar with some of the language can still digest it. But that'll probably be the update today that folks should see up here sooner than later. Sorry for not having it up there for you guys already. But if there's any questions on this, we can use this time to get into exactly what this looks like, or we can save it for discussion. I know, Jason, you're looking forward to some of the details of the flow and of the consensus tooling and things like this.
Yeah, I think my main goal with it too is I just want to raise awareness about what you guys have done so far and like how this could be used for some of these models that are being thought about in the Citicoins ecosystem. So Already what you have here is definitely what I'm sharing out. This is what I pay attention to. And I know right around the corner, you guys have a lot more coming out, like documentation wise and everything like that. So I just want to be on the pulse for it. I'm really excited to see it come together. And already, I've seen things where a micro DAO may be an excellent fit. So I want to see, like what we can learn from what you guys have done and how we could kind of use any part of that process to help out.
Yeah, no, it's exciting, right? Because one of the particular reasons why I appreciated the language of microDAO is because it points to there being a broader DAO, right, around the structures of just sending money around. And that what is included in that broader DAO is the consensus flow tooling, right, the governance tooling and the models for that governance tooling that make it that hopefully can broaden its capacity for long-term sustainability, horizontality and accessibility to voice being heard. All of that, just the what we're calling journeys tooling for microDAOs in and of itself, wouldn't be able to, achieve. But it's still important functions of sending monies around. So microDAOs make sense from this language from Haas. And but yeah, I'd love to get into a little bit of what we're imagining it will be the use of what Merrick has started to term this modular like tooling from Haas, right? That can be picked up by these respective clans and used how they're needed, as said earlier. And but we can get into, I don't know, let's see, I'm not sure if we have anything in the discussion around some of this. Let me see.
I have an idea. Like, what about if we, when it's like ready, more, or if some of the things are ready, I know, but like set up a session to show Jason like how it works in practice. Like he can actually use it, like how Haas show the Mad Star team, like live, and Jason can actually play with it physically in a session.
Yeah, we've already had people pick up the tooling, right? So it's possible.
Yeah, we have. Yeah.
By the way, that I think it might be interesting for you, Jason. I haven't shared that publicly yet, to be honest, but microDAOs support NYC and MIA, USDA, almost like all of the Alex, Deco, all these tokens, and can have like custom contracts that support any SEP10 tokens. We had a limitation to make it simple, but turns out the switch to like SIP10 alongside STX, which is like a virtual contract for wrapped STX I asked for, is now possible. The labs version is now upgraded to a SIP10 compatible version. I'll share that with you.
Oh, that's amazing, because that's kind of right in line with what we're talking about. I mean, not to go too far down this rabbit hole, but if you imagine Citicoins as a governance token and somehow attached to a stable coin, which is another idea that's down the road. But Citicoins as a governance token would give people the ability, all you then need is like KYC in the city, and you can actually have like voter sentiment. So there's some interesting little pieces to unlock there, but probably the simplest form of that is having a parent DAO that would receive funds from the protocol, and then sub DAOs that could do certain things with certain amounts of funds or for certain purposes. And that's where this type of structure, I think there's some interesting overlap for sure. So probably the best thing to do would be to schedule a meeting or something where we can go over what's possible now, and also look at, there's actually an open RFP for different DAO ideas. So I'd like to see if things make a lot of sense, then maybe we can look at what it would take to have this as another proposal in that process as well.
I could give you the whole next week. I could also like demo the consensus flow and show how to integrate it, if that's like a suitable setup for like the different scales that you have. and like just like show you, just sort of pass this knowledge to you. So we can have, I could clear my calendar for next week. It's just like work together on that.
Yeah, let's stay in touch, and I'll find some time as well, because I think it's definitely worth it, and it's a good time to get into the conversation because everything's kind of in theory right now. But it'll likely move fast if something is decided on. So I want you guys to be included in that, and we also want to learn from you, of course, because you've got hands in it and been doing it for a while.
Awesome.
It's beautiful to think of what can come of it. And yeah, I think I don't think there's be a time where I'll be able to get into some of the flows later in discussion. So I'll try to get to it now. But one of the main ways that the Active Issues channel will change once folks start picking up the consensus flow tooling in the context of the CLAN system, the system design, is that not everybody will be able to post into the Active Issues as it's open now, right? To just anybody posting. And I think that speaks to a lot of the scalability issues being addressed with the system design. Can't just stay open to anybody posting in there. But it'll be, restricted to folks that have been selected in these temporary CLAN representative roles. And, and then another big difference is that right now, if you look at the Active Issues, you can see everybody jumping in into the thread, and it's male, female, everybody. But in the clan system, the 3 clans split into 6, right? Where there's a female turtle clan and a female wolf and bear along with male. And you have these autonomous processes for decision making that happen alongside each other with communication through the reps of what's going on throughout that time. And so you really have this the streamlining of autonomous processes, and so where the bulk of consensus happens before being then formalized in a formal phase. And in this formal phase is the first time where they actually come together, both the men and the women clans. And this becomes interesting in terms of, there's still room for deliberation, but there's already been autonomous decision making, right? And so it speaks to the being authentic in dialogue, right? Because if there's interference in our decision making before we come to a table to have dialogue, then there's not really dialogue anymore, right? And so this is, not just between men and women, but also, with consideration for ecosystems and things like this, right? There's nuances in the formal deliberation process that are these built-in reminders to consider the autonomy of even ecosystems before coming to a final decision in the flow. And the way that it's built in, it looks simple in terms of just logistics, who's posting in a particular, the final part of a flow in a particular thread that's being picked up in the consensus flow tooling, or in the indigenous context, it's who walks over from across the fire, right? With the turtle clan being the only clan that's not sitting next to each other, both men and women, for deliberation. For when that brief period of deliberation that does happen and formalization happens, the female turtles have to walk over. And this is not just a logistics thing, it's a nuanced reminder of how you actually come together on a position with these autonomous processes already been had. How do you ensure that there's a capacity to come together on a position? And it's speaking to a reassessment of where balance comes from, right? Always where there's more. There's a motif in the indigenous context. And in this context, it's more of an abstraction of male and female, right? If regenerative abundance is female, right? Extractive scarcity is male, right? Or so on and so forth across different types of examples of abstracting that principle. And so the idea is that if you want a capacity to come to consensus on a position, you have the best chance of doing that with where there's more, right? Having regenerative abundance being able to, or commons being able to wrap its mind around extractive scarcity, or some of the things of productivity, questions of productivities that need to be solved there, but not vice versa, right? In fact, regenerative abundance usually, coming into that type of understanding comes from understanding some of the pitfalls of extractive scarcity, or going too far in terms of extractive scarcity. So it's more of this abstraction of female and male in terms of one of the nuances in the formal deliberation flow, and the flow and layout come together to in combination with streamlining as many voices as possible, streamlining autonomous processes of decision-making, ensuring that in the long term, right, in the active issue channel as is, you might be able to feel like, okay, we have enough female voices here, to feel like, this is, a fair, exchange of voices. But in the long term, and as complex dynamics occur, it would be hard to ensure that that is, a constant thing, right? Or to even know that it's happening for sure. But with this built in this way, you can see that there's this, built-in functional means to ensuring that this is the case, and not just, and even broader beyond our social organization, into how our social organization impacts ecologies around us. And so there's some of the things that are exciting about being able to build into the tooling, build into the flows, to speak to these functional mechanisms of autonomy in a lot of ways, as opposed to just lip service, right? And this goes along with a lot of the beautiful things Haas has been sure to build into the tooling, like dissent as opposed to majority vote, right? So you have the chance to come to consensus before splitting your minds with majority vote in a certain direction. And so this is, some of the things that we're excited to include in the documentation of how these things are picked up. Hopefully it makes sense with the modular tooling and the different clans being able to use this tooling as they need to throughout a selected period of time, right, of bottom-up quorums, or gathering voices in consensus real time, or in asynchronous threads. And we are thinking of different ways of legitimizing the asynchronous threads based on some of the council layout and flow that usually works in a physical context, but should also lend itself to legitimacy in an asynchronous digital remote context as well. So those are some of the things that we're excited to share with you, Jason. And in addition to the MicroDAO stuff that can plug into what is this ultimately more governance focused stuff, that when inevitably something happens in the MicroDAO realm that requires governance, there's an easy plug into these type of flows as well, in terms of sussing out what the proper positions to come to for those respective issues. But I'll shut up now and get to the rest of the list here. But I hope that wasn't too convoluted, Jason.
Not at all, man. It all really sounds great. I appreciate it.
Maybe I'll just add share my little story about this point specifically. I think just coming from not understanding any of these to now, and then I think a couple of weeks ago, I came to the realization, because there's a lot of consensus flows words. And also I get confused with like Bitcoin consensus and stuff sometimes. I keep thinking about Bitcoin. But I think it almost made me realize, like the tooling, like MicroDAO, like what Harold said about, when you have one dissent, that then you basically means you have to come to the table and talk about it, and come having dialogues and conversations. Then maybe you will have everybody agree. So what I sort of realized was like some weeks ago, it's like, oh, actually the dialogue itself is the tooling. Like you actually have to go through all the dialogues and in order for no one to dissent. So actually the conversations and the dialogue itself is, this is to encourage those conversations. So the dialogue is almost part of the toolings. Yeah, so that's my thoughts.
I appreciated that, Hero, as a concise means of saying what I'll say as you usually do. You paraphrase it beautifully. So thank you kindly for bringing that up again. I will probably continue to phrase it that way without you here, but I'll remember eventually. I like it. I like the way it sounds. So yeah, well, thank you kindly, Hero, Jason. Yeah, let's go right ahead to what we may have for discussion. I know this is something exciting, right, Haz? And I know Jason and Hero got in here talking about it a little bit. Do you guys want to get down on this a little bit?
Yeah. The basic idea is taken from like different communities that tries to encourage or tries to distribute tokens, especially like with early supporters of like a blockchain, for example. The tokens themselves, as they increase in value, you have more retention, I guess. So, but first you have to distribute these tokens, not as like rewards necessarily, but as a means for people to access the blockchain. So you're even with like the flawed source code competitive leaderboard, you still have things like, you know, a few stacks to sign up BNS, sign up for a BNS name. You have you can, even if there's if you need some other form of support, you can ask for it in some sort of an issue or proposal would be open to fill that need. So this issue, I've opened this issue to just to start or to ideate on how we can scale up. We had some scaling issues that are resolved now, that I mentioned here, specifically where source code might take some time to calculate the payouts. We don't have that anymore with the new algorithm, and with governance, which was a much more direct and no consent whatsoever, almost no discussion, almost before like going to a formal process. Now we have a two-tiered governance process, and active issues, and then informal proposals. So we have what it means, what we need to scale, but we might need some structures that governs like core advocates through like older advocates, for example, some sort of gating for governance, but not for receiving stacks tokens. So this is why I presented this in as a discussion item. We could definitely do more with community. How can I say this? Cohesion. I think the NFT projects are cohesive enough because of like the inherent token or NFT that everyone has in the community. We have something even that I think some NFT projects have already, which is like actual connection between people. honest connection. So we can definitely capitalize on that and the intrinsic motivation of people. The ethics program definitely provides access for so many community members that are everywhere in the community that might support someone achieve or do what they're passionate about, and might remove the barriers for contributing to Stacks while being supported through grants or something, because of the support, the actual human support that is in advocates, that is there in advocates. So I'm not sure if we should like limit this to vouches, or if there is a different way, but we can definitely open this up. Opening this up also would mean maybe increasing the pool, the stacking pool, so that it fits the number of people, and with the parallel effort to support journeys, which are small grants with MicroDAOs as well, we can have the people who are earning more in the with the algorithm, with the source code algorithm, actually have a more stable path to receive compensation for their work. Take for example, Jake, who's doing podcasts, or Craig, who's doing translations, or Omar, or whatever, any person who's doing like actual repetitive, consistent work, that can be covered by journeys, and leave the unorganized or disorganized or non-job like say contributions to the social good algorithm, which I think might fit well with such contributions. This is dependent on a few assumptions that someone might do different work all the time, which I don't think is necessarily true. I think people would do a lot of things and then settle on a rhythm of one thing, for example, that they like, and that might lend itself to this funnel of social credit rewards to journeys, and then maybe social credit's role might be minimized, which I think is a nice goal to have, a nice to stay away from extrinsic motivations, and focus on the intrinsic, especially with support for meeting some people's needs that are sometimes like minimal and can be achieved with continuous funding through journeys. But yeah, this is basically why I wanted to open up advocates.
Yeah, man, this is exciting. And to some of your last points there, that got me really excited. Some of your language recently around, journeys and the MicroDAOs coming to the foreground in the system design, rather than in the data things and the credit quote or source credit algorithm, means a better handle on what is still can go unseen in a data thing or in props, right? In terms of the more invisible labor, emotional labor, or things that are just going to go into getting a project done that are hard to constantly be putting down or logging in some way, or the way that it compensates that, in the way that the algorithm can miss sometimes is a nice thing. And the trust being wrapped around journeys and the system design of journeys being a big part of that. I've really appreciated that language that you've used around that to describe where we can go in the system design. So and I think it speaks to bringing intrinsic motivations into the foreground as well, and hopefully we can still do a lot of work to wrap some visuals around that, around the journeys program and so on and so forth. But yeah, this is beautiful. I think I agree 100% in terms of how you're thinking about it. Yeah, I don't know if there's any other questions or comments or additions to this discussion. I know I can probably have some, but I want to give some room for others.
Yeah, a lot of things. One of the ones that I wanted to pull out was like in this idea of the flow of going from like did things to something more regular, or to something more directly supported. Thinking too about like the buddy flow from earlier, and talking about like having a specific buddy channel to have that be separate, and then also maybe having a separate like translations channel. And I'm thinking of a way of, having a separate like way, like maybe helping that pipeline. So like once it's been did a thing once or twice. Shit, I haven't fully planned what I was going to say. But like having like a halfway point of this other channel. One, I'm thinking an upskilling channel as well, a buddy channel as well, and maybe like a translation channel as well for these things that are more like regular work, and have that be like a separate post from the did a thing. So this did a thing can be more of a one-off thing, and then still tracking what goes on in these channels with like SourceCred, or not with SourceCred, with something else. I don't know. That was kind of what I was thinking. That wasn't very coherent, pardon me.
I think it made some sense in terms of a flow, two journeys, right? And how the buddy system, the upskilling program that yourself and Hero have been thinking about, could be just some nice hand-holding two journeys if it's not readily seen or known that it's a thing, or how to approach it. No, I think I understood where you're going with that, right? Just a little bit more building out of the funnel that I think Haz mentioned earlier.
Yeah, and I realized I forgot the other thing I wanted to say, which was like this idea of like expanding, right? And right now we have this glue of like people that like to be here and hang out, right, in the Advox DAO. And thinking about like so if we're talking about expanding, right, the DAO, which is great and what we eventually want to do, probably yes, thinking about expanding this buddy system, right? Because I think that's an important thing, for someone, especially if we get bigger, having some glue, some buddies that will hold your hand through it, and be a human touch in this system. And just kind of some of what I was talking about with Hero, because there's figuring out the capacity both of like the more experienced buddy and then the newer buddy. So there's matching them up, but then there's also like the work that Hero's been doing to actually hook those people together. And that's some of what I was thinking of trying to automate with this like buddy flow. So I don't know, it feels relevant to this Advox expansion conversation. Just the more work that can be done there to lighten Hero's load, and thinking of just like Wolf Clan duties as well, of being that warm welcome and putting people in place. There's like, I think, work to be done there alongside this expansion, or before this expansion, or it's what I'm thinking about. And Hero's off to a buddy call now, speaking of. I see that in chat. Yeah, so I don't know that.
No, I think it makes sense, right, Haas? In terms of some first steps into ensuring that we approach this right. I think it's a little bit of what you wanted in this thread. So maybe it's a good place to put that down, Merrick, so we don't lose track of it, or it can be visible for other folks as well. And it might be a place where it gets more and more polished. But yeah, I think it's a nice way to start this discussion and continue it. Thank you, Conley.
Yeah, we can definitely. So I'm on 100% like 100% agree with Merrick. This is exactly what I needed. Like but like these scaling preparations, I think are necessary. There's definitely some coordination work as well to be had with a foundation. I think they could like do some promotion or something. I'm not sure what's the wording for that. And also like the coordination itself around how this is going to happen, the expectations, how's this going to affect either or both journeys or the Advox stacking pool. But that's basically I think is another need before like we move ahead. We okay this because yeah, I think it should be like a coordinated effort. I think also like there's a lot of maybe not a lot, but there is preparation to be done, whether a lot or some.
Yeah. I think some of it too, we might consider including it in what is going to be a meeting hopefully later today around documentation. You know, we can start to consider some of this stuff in those sessions as well, right? In terms of how to make these this scaling preparation more polished as well, right? How to ensure that ends up in a polished way for folks to just you know, hop into. You know, that it feels like a more official thing, right? The buddy system, the upskilling system, right? So that I think good documentation goes a long way for that, for engendering that feeling and making it feel like a part of what you do once you come into Advocates. And yeah, I'm excited to see what that looks like later today. But yeah, thank you, Conley Haas, for starting this issue, and those of you that are adding to it already. I'll be sure to get in here and add to the discussion as well, based on, you know, some of what we discussed right now. But thank you, Conley. Thank you. If there's anything else to stop us. I know we're way past time now. This unfortunately will probably have to, some of this good stuff from Runa, unfortunately probably get pushed to next session, if that's okay with you guys, to come out of this meeting as soon as possible. I think it's important though. Maybe we do some due diligence in getting Runa in here. I see Hero caught a hold of this thread as well. So maybe we push it to the front of these sessions to make sure it gets addressed, as opposed to forgot about, like it has the last couple of sessions. What do you guys think? This is another one from Philip, who is also not here. So maybe we make sure to get these folks in here as well. So, you know, with the Longhouse too, right? It's not necessarily so productive when someone brings a question for you into a meeting and your voice isn't there. So I know there's a lot missing from Philip here, and probably a lot missing from Runa or Hero when it comes to the other stuff. So yeah, I know a lot of this stuff is backlog stuff. I could give updates on some of our education stuff that's going to come with Magenta's work in coming weeks, but I don't think I have anything as of now. And I think a lot of this stuff we covered in terms of the bounties and governance lab stuff, because we've always tied it into Journey's work. So maybe we think about closing these out in favor of those other more active issues. But yeah, thank you kindly, y'all, for the time today. It's always productive, I feel, to get together like this to catch up. And yeah, I'll stop the recording. This has been a beautiful session as always, y'all. Let me see.